Hi everyone, you have reached Chronicles of the Great Hair Diva. If this is your first time, welcome. If not, welcome back. For all of you out there, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that every time I upload a video, you will be notified. Hit the like button, chat with me in the comments, and when I get an opportunity, I will chat back. And share my video with your friends and family so that they can come to my channel and get to know me also. I'm here today because I'm still reading my book, The Inside Story of the Real Housewives from the People Who Lived It, Not All Diamonds and Rose, by Dave Quinn. It is $28.99. I do recommend it if you are a fan of the franchise. It's an interesting read, okay? So I'm reading it chapter by chapter, and the first chapter was about the Real Housewives of Orange County and all of the people who wanted to contribute to that chapter, like the housewives, the producers, and all of that. And now the second part two is a bite of the Big Apple, the Real Housewives of New York City. The premiere date was March the 4th, 2008. It's amazing to me that these shows have been on for this long. And it starts out with a little message from Andy, a little quote from Andy. My mind was totally blown by the idea of making a housewives show. The thought gave me goosebumps, actually, because the woman was so New York, aggressive, controlling, and totally opposite of Orange County. And that's a quote by Andy Cohen. So recently I read something about how Bethany is pissed about this book. She feels that it doesn't celebrate women, is woman bashing woman. And, pretty much how could you put something like this out? Like, we need this in this time period, she tweeted. So, and I'm paraphrasing. So here's the thing, and here's how I feel about it. I could see why Bethany is pissed. First of all, Bethany is not one of the housewives that contributed to this book. But, however, all of the other housewives, they freely gave their contribution. So, Bethany, if you're pissed because you're saying this book is bashing women, be mad at the woman because they gave their contribution themselves. It's not a producer telling their version of the story. It's the actual housewives telling their own versions themselves. And she said that, this Dave Quinn is playing on the housewife weaknesses. Well, they didn't have to give the story. And do I think it's, a little salacious, it's messy? It's like, to me, an episode of the franchise, but instead of us seeing it on TV, it's being written. And it's a rerun episode with them just kind of explaining from their perspective what happened, because it's not too much new stuff yet that I haven't even heard of, but there is a little something in this chapter that I'll tell you about that you probably already heard about. But other than that, it's just scenes that we already know about, but it gives you a backstory and you're like, okay, that's what really happened. So Bethany is pissed. The real name, the first original name that they had for this, because they wasn't thinking the mindset of, the Housewives is going to be this mega franchise in so many different states and cities. So the first name they had for this, for the Real Housewives of New York City, was called Manhattan Moms. And then the one producer that was, insisting and had the insight that the Real Housewives should be a franchise that spans across, a long span, said, no, we should call this the Real Housewives of New York City. And the ladies, when they was first filming, wasn't even told that they were filming a Real Housewives show. They learned it later on. So Bethany is pissed. But I'll continue with Bethany's story for the most part in this book, because I know why she's pissed. She's pissed because every story in this book that pertains to her, that told by her castmates, does not portray her in a good light. So one of the stories, they said, one, that Bethany, when she first came on, she did not have a lot of money. She was just beginning like her brand and building herself up. And then when she did start to build up, Skinny Girl, every scene that she was in, it was promotion for skinny girl. And so the cast wasn't happy about that, but Andy also stated that a lot of the fans was writing in, they were sick of it. But if you think about that for Bethany, it was genius, right? You have hundreds of thousands of people watching the show every week, and now you're getting to like have skinny girl just be plastered everywhere and at the forefront of people's mind, and now you can grow your business. So the ladies was kind of pissed about that in some sense, because at first they was helping her. They didn't mind, like, this is our fellow castmate, let's go along with it and be in scenes with her skinny girl brand showing. But they said the problem came in when it came time to help them, she didn't return the favor. So they were kind of pissed about that. Luann claims that the skinny girl drink was created by Luann and not Bethany. And when Bethany wrote her first book, I guess, a memoir, whatever, she thanked Luann in the book. And Luann told a castmate, see, that's proof. She's saying thank you to me. Like, this couldn't happen without me. And that's proof that I did, make this first drink for her or whatever. So who knows what the true story of in regards to that really is. But as I stated, most of the stories in this book when it pertains to Bethany is not good. So maybe to go in alignment to believe, if you want to believe Luann's portion of she came up with this drink, when Luann got herself into trouble or was drinking a lot, got arrested and needed to go to rehab, Bethany covered the rehab bill. And so maybe one can say, well, she covered the rehab bill because she felt a little bit guilty that, yes, Luann came up with this drink, but you never gave her a piece of the empire. So, paying the rehab bill maybe been a little bit of a atonement. Who knows? Don't know. But, all of these stories are in the book. So Jill I think every franchise has their person that was there from the beginning, that kind of was the glue that started the whole thing and, served several years on the franchise. So Jill was the first New York housewife, and she was on for several seasons. But like many others, when her end came, her end was pretty nasty. Her and Bethany had a close relationship initially on the show, and then when her and Bethany fell out, it was horrific, and the fans didn't like it. And, Jill ended up like being fired, with the rest of them, and she didn't take it well. And then we did see us, unfortunately, when Jill's husband passed, and they had to show the funeral. When they showed the funeral, they showed Bethany and Jill making up. But Jill said, again, to show you why Bethany's probably pissed, Jill said that Bethany really did it for the show, because after that, she Jill tried to call Bethany, and Bethany had changed her number, so she never spoke to her after that. And they really didn't have a friendship. And so Andy, kind of taken up for Bethany, said that maybe he feels that Bethany was very close to Jill's husband and just wanted to kind of say goodbye to him, and that's why she came to the funeral. So we'll never know, because Bethany wasn't a part of this book. Another thing that the ladies got mad about Bethany, they got mad because when Bethany got pregnant, she got her own spinoff show, and the girls wasn't happy about it. It's like, why does she get a spinoff show but none of us get a spinoff show? So I think I said it in my last video, I feel like this Housewives franchise is set up so that all they do is end up like being jealous of each other and pecking at each other, which is just so horrific. It's just a horrific existence to be in. So it's like, it's a catch-22, because you get a lot of exposure being on these shows, you make a lot of money, but is the exposure and the money truly worth it at the end of the day? So I think that's the mostly everything I have to say about Bethany, and I told you Jill was one of the founding members, but then unfortunately for her as a founding member, she ended up getting like leaving the show, but not really leaving on her own accord. She just fell out with Bethany and other things happened, so she ended up leaving. So Ramona is a staple on the Real Housewives of New York, and they talk about how they actually casted all of the players on this show. Sonia Morgan, Luann, they talk about where they found Luann at, and I'm telling you guys, it's a really, if you are a Housewives fan, it's a good book to read, and I don't want to give you all the spoilers. But another big thing, and you probably seen this in the news around, and I want to say it's around page 144, when Heather joined the show. Like, Heather kind of fell out with Sonia, and when she fell out with Sonia, in this book, she tells, all of Sonia's, now we don't know what's true, everything is from the person who's speaking perspective, but she says how, like, how dare Sonia pretty much, like, stop speaking to me or be mad at me or whatever, or treat me a certain way when I have picked her up off of, bathroom floors. I'm trying to turn to that page where it's at. It says, I have taken her out of a vestibule where she was letting guys put lit cigarettes in her vagina. I have done so much for that woman. And here we are waiting to go to Atlantic City. We all arrived at her house, but the limo wasn't there yet and it was raining out. Well, she let us in. So it's a scene where Sonia, there was a situation. They was all supposed to be going to Atlantic City. Sonia wasn't prepared for anyone to come in her house. And the call sheet said that the filming was not going to happen in her house. But the ladies arrived to her house. And, they was mad because Sonia wouldn't let them in. And here's the thing, though. For Heather to bring that up and to say that about Sonia, when you have a friend and you and that friend fall out, y'all could fall out and never speak again, but just the underlining, unspoken, unwritten, or fine print friendship rules, you don't go telling their business just because you're no longer are good. And people are pissed at Heather, saying, why would she even bring this up or write this in the book when, she knows that Sonia has family, friends, or whatever. Like, why would you do that? And I do agree with everyone else. So I thought that was pretty low of Heather. Other than that, it's kind of like a lot of maybe the same stuff. How they talk about, how people take alliances and, they ice people out, kind of cliquish. They get cliquish when new housewives come on the show. They talk about in this chapter how Luann kind of knew that the marriage wasn't going to work between her and Tom, but she had already sold an exclusive story or pictures to, some magazines, so she was going to go through with it no matter what. And we all know that their marriage lasted probably like 2.2 seconds. They talk about how, what's his name? I want to say his name was Slade and Alex, how the audience, the fans really wasn't feeling them, but they had their little stint on the show and they was kind of mad when they got kicked off too, but then they did blogs and stuff about the show and they were still watching. Jill talked about how she's a very jealous person, which is interesting. They talk about how when they went to the Virgin Islands and they called it Scary Island, they talk about the housewife, the one that was there, and she kind of had the prosthetic leg, and in that infamous scene when she threw her leg, and she talked about pretty much how she planned it. It's just crazy. Like, we do know sometimes when you're watching, there's a lot of times when I'm watching, there's times when I'm like, okay, that just seems so rehearsed, and there's other times when I'm like, oh my God, that is just really real. Yeah, I underlined here that how they was all upset about how Bethany got her own spin-off shows. Let me see. Was there anything else good in this particular chapter? I think that's it. Oh, Carol. I actually like Carol on the show. But her and Andy kind of fell out, and she had, after they fell out, she, I think, wrote Andy an email saying, she would never speak to him again. And Andy said, and they have never spoken again. Oh, the friend of Ro. The first time they ever did that in housewife history was on The Real Housewives of New York with Luann. And the year that she was a friend, that year she brought it, and then the very next year, she got her apple again. They put her back to a regular full-time role. So it's it's interesting to see who makes history, who doesn't. It's so crazy, but I'm loving the book is what I can say. Oh, and Bethany said, at one point, Bethany has said that, this show projects women in a bad way, and she said she would never come back. But yet, after that, she did come back, and I heard that they are trying to get her back to come this season after they had that, unfortunately, their past season was just very horrific. Dorinda had a saying here about the housewives. She said, it's like football. The players get on the football field, they beat each other up, and then they shake each other's hand at the end. It's just that way. So that's what she's saying about the Real Housewives show, and I totally feel that way too. It's like they're doing what they got to do to get the job done, but at the end of the day, they still love each other. That's some people, not all. A thing with Jill is, and I think again this just shows you how they kind of set the girls up to pit themselves against each other, where some of the girls had got a job or a gig to do like a magazine cover or story, but when they picked the ones that they wanted to do it, they were like, you can't say anything to the other ladies. And and then this one producer said, secrets keep you sick. And that quote right there, or that statement right there, I totally agree with it. Secrets keep you sick. So it's just crazy. I'm trying to see what else I wanted to say. I told you about the skinny girl drink, how Luann claimed she really made that. And then Sonia Morgan and her famous saying, hoes before bros. And that was because, Tom allegedly slept with Sonia, Luann, and what is her name? Ramona. So they all, or Tom had a piece of all of them, or they all had a piece of Tom. I don't know which way you want to kind of look at it. I'm trying to see where else I have notes in here. Oh, they said, Andy said, when they get fired, instead of saying, they was fired, they allowed the housewives to kind of craft their own little statement. And we've seen that over the years. Most of them say, I felt it was time. Thank you, Bravo. Thank you, Truly Entertainment. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate my time, but I'm going to move on to bigger and better things now. But they said, that unfortunately Carol was so bitter and she did things so ugly. And I think that's why, her and Andy don't speak, and she'll probably never come back as a housewife again. So, guys, that was my take on part 2, The Real Housewives of New York City. Let me know if you're reading the book. As I stated, definitely worth it. You should get it. And I'll see you in the next video, and I will talk to you about the next chapter. And the next chapter is just peachy. So we're going to get to the Atlanta girls. Let's see what goes down with them. Thanks, guys, for listening. I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to hit the like button and chat with me in the comments. And when I get an opportunity, I will chat back. See ya.